Hey everyone, it's Lexie. So in today's video, I'll be sharing with you the top 5 books that I read this spring. So the way this video is formatted is I'll go through all the books that I read over March, April, and May, their corresponding rating, and then at the end I'll talk more in depth about the ones that made my top 5 list. So yeah, without further ado, let's get started. So starting out with the month of March, I first read Body Double, Vanish, and the Mephisto Club, all by Tess, which I all gave a 4.5 out of 5 stars. And finally, I read The Thursday Murder Club and The Man Who Died Twice by Richard Osman, which I gave a 4 out of 5 stars and a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Moving on to the month of April, I first read The Keepsake, Ice Cold, and Freaks by Tess, which I gave a 4 out of 5 stars, a 5 out of 5 stars, and a 4 out of 5 stars. Next up, I read Gated Prey by Goldberg, which I gave a 4 out of 5 stars. The Diamond Eye by Kate Quinn, which I gave a 4 out of 5 stars. And finally, Titus, Groan by Mervyn, Peake, which I gave a 3 out of 5 stars. So starting out in the month of May, I first read The Silent Girl, John Doe, Last to Die, Die Again, and I Know a Secret, all by Tess. I ended up giving all 5 of these a 4 out of 5 stars. So first up, one of the top books is kind of just the series in general, and it has been my reread of the Rizzoli Isles series by Tess. I initially read this series back when I was 15 years old, so it's been 12 years since I've read some of these old ones, and so it's been really fun reading this through an adult lens. And there were like bits and pieces that I remembered here or there about certain books, and one that some of them I didn't remember as well. So in some cases it was like reading them for the first time again, which was a lot of fun. And I feel like as an adult I appreciate these books more. I think I picked up on a lot of things that I didn't necessarily, really get when I was 15 years old. So it was really the series is near and dear to my heart, and I'm happy that I reread it when I did, because it's just been really interesting. It's been nostalgic, and this book, I definitely grew up with this series from being 15 to now 27 with a new book coming out in July. So it's been really interesting to see how much of this series my life kind of has been intertwined with. So it's really interesting seeing that. For those who don't know, this is based on a homicide detective and a medical examiner in Boston. So we follow Detective Jane Rizzoli and Dr. Mara Isles as they investigate some crime cases. This is some of my favorite. This series really got me really into the crime genre. I remember I would read the book, and then every Friday my mom would pick me up from school. We'd walk into town and I'd get the next book in the series. So like I said, the series is near and dear to my heart, and I just enjoyed it. I feel like every book is very unique and diverse in terms of the kind of murder mystery aspect, which I really enjoy, and it just makes for a unique, fun read. Especially some of them, I feel like I learned so much. One of them I learned a lot about mummies, or African safari animals, just all those things. So I feel like I always learn something new with one of her books, and definitely this reread was a lot of fun, and especially revisiting some of these characters that I haven't really, characters in this world that I haven't really been a part of for a while. So it's been a really good, solid kind of reread throughout, all of the books that I read over these last 3 months. And next up would have to be one of the kind of novellas that is incorporated within the Rizzoli Isles series, and it is John Doe. This one is, I don't want to give too much away because it is fairly short, but it involves Mara going to this kind of donor's banquet at the museum, and she ends up meeting this handsome man in his suit. He gives her a glass of champagne, and she wakes up the next morning not really knowing what happened, and it kind of goes off from there. I thought this one was really interesting in terms of the character dynamics between Mara and Jane, especially in this point in the series, because there were some kind of friction between them. So it was really interesting to see how they kind of handled Mara kind of going through this, where Jane is still trying to be supportive, but she's still a little bit upset with something Mara has done. So I think it was really interesting seeing that dynamic kind of thrown into this, in addition to just kind of talking about rape culture and all that stuff too. So even though this is a very short novella, I did really enjoy this. I think this one is definitely my favorite out of the two that are currently available. But yeah, like I said, I really like this one. So next up would have to be The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. So this was one of my Tales and Teacups book club picks, and this book took me by surprise. I know that this book has been around for a while. I know it's really well loved and it has really good reviews, but I didn't expect to love this as much as I did. And someone who kind of reads kind of more kind of heavy duty crime novels, this one was kind of takes that crime genre and turns it on its head. And so this follows 4 nursing home residents who live in kind of a retirement village, and they have what is called the Thursday Murder Club, where each week they investigate different cold cases. And so when this murder takes place right outside their door of their community, they kind of find ways to insert themselves into these investigations, and just how they kind of take a lot of stereotypes and tropes about elderly people and use that to their advantage, and kind of, you know, finding ways to insert themselves into these investigations was a lot of fun. I loved the character dynamic in between the like main 4 group, and also kind of the friendships that they form within the police department I really liked. And it just is a lot of fun. Like I said, it kind of takes that very, you know, dark, you know, serious subject matter of like crime, murder, mysteries, and kind of turns it on its head into something that is also like very serious, but it doesn't take itself too seriously. Like there's humor mixed in, there's times where I felt where I just laughed out loud. And as soon as I picked this one up, after I finished it, I picked up the second one. I was able to get it from the library. That's how much I love this one. So like I said, this one took me by surprise, and I think there's a 3rd book coming out in September, which I'm really excited about. So yeah, I'm happy I finally picked this one up. I understand what all the hype is about, and yeah, it's just like I said, it was like not what I was expecting in a good way. I'm just realizing now that all the books that I picked in this kind of wrap up for my top 5 are very much crime heavy, so I do apologize for that, but I guess it was a very crime heavy like 3 months of spring. So next up would have to be Gated Prey by Goldberg. This is the 3rd book in the Eve Ronan series, and yeah, these ones are just a lot of fun. So we follow Eve Ronan, who is a very new homicide detective, and she ended up becoming a homicide detective because she was involved in a viral video that involved her arresting a celebrity for domestic violence, and obviously that went viral, and she used that as leverage to get promoted into the homicide department. And so she's very much, she has a lot to learn, but she has to prove herself and kind of prove that she deserves to be there. So she's kind of struggling with that. This one involves a string kind of starts out with a string of break-ins that are going in within this gated community that leads into something bigger than Eve was even expecting. So it kind of goes off from there. But I believe this author was a screenwriter for many TV shows. So you can kind of see, like, I feel like these books are really fast paced. The chapters are very short, and like I find that I read through it very, very quickly, and I'm just drawn in. I feel like every chapter ends on a cliffhanger, and I just want to keep reading. So I really like the cadence of this writing. I feel like just with the characters, the murder mystery sides, and all this thing, like I think it leads for a very engaging and fast read. So I believe there's a new one coming out this summer, I want to say, so that is exciting too. But yeah, this is just a new fun series, and if you're wanting to get into something kind of a crime series, this one only has 3 books out right now, so it'll be a fun one and short one for you to kind of read and get caught up in. And this one's a little bit different than some of the other ones from the kind of formulaic crime series that kind of started out in the 90s or early 2000s. So this one is very much very different, and I really enjoy it. And lastly, this was one of my most anticipated releases of like this half of the year, so I was super excited when I finally got this one in my hands, and it did not disappoint. And it is The Diamond Eye by Kate Quinn. So this is loosely based off of a woman who fought for Russia, or I guess, yeah, USSR during World War II, and she is one of the most highly decorated snipers in history, but because she's a woman, it's not really kind of talked about a lot. So this follows her story of eventually how she became a sharpshooter, her experience during the war, and like falling in love and all that stuff. I feel like this one is very much heavy on the romance, which I wasn't expecting. I feel like it was a little bit too heavy. That was like one of my complaints. And like one of the opening chapters, basically you find out is that when she was doing a tour in Washington DC, meeting the president, in order to kind of help get the American population to kind of support US entering the war, there is this assassin who's been sent who's going to kind of use the Russian delegation and this character in particular. Like, I don't know why I'm blanking on her name, Mila. Like, they're going to use Mila as kind of the scapegoat for assassinating the president, which is very kind of absurd and out there. So like, you know, like that obviously is very much fictionalized, but yeah, like I still enjoyed it. The ending was really satisfying, but I feel like you could tell the author took a lot of liberties and just kind of exaggerated a lot of different things. You can tell the author wasn't staying kind of true to the source material. There are threads here or there of like actual things in terms of certain things she experienced throughout the war, but you could tell the author took a lot of liberties into doing this. So yeah, overall, like I said, despite kind of my complaints, I still really enjoyed this. It was an interesting read. I learned a lot about kind of the science of sniping, which is also interesting as well. Like, not something like I'm a Canadian, not a big fan of guns, but I did learn a lot about kind of the science and physics that goes into all this, so that I did find interesting. That's it, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below what some of your top 5 books were from this past spring season and all of that fun stuff. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you guys next time. Bye, guys.